I woke up one Saturday morning feeling good. It was payday week, and I planned to finally take a short trip out of town. I made some coffee, sat down at my desk, and opened my bank app. My heart stopped for a moment when I saw the balance, 0. At first, I thought it was some kind of glitch. I refreshed the page, logged out, and logged back in. Same thing. My savings, everything I had worked for, was gone. My hands started shaking. I checked my transaction history, and that's when I saw it. Multiple transfers, all to familiar names. My mom, my brother, my sister. Each transaction looked small at first. $200 here, $500 there, but it added up to tens of thousands over the months. I felt like the ground disappeared under me. I called the bank right away. The woman on the line was kind but firm. She said all the transactions were authorized, since my family members were listed as joint users on the account. My chest felt tight. I barely remembered adding them. It was years ago when my dad passed away, and I thought keeping things joint would help manage bills faster. I had trusted them completely. When I confronted my mom later that day, she didn't even look surprised. She was sitting on the couch watching TV, sipping coffee like nothing was wrong. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "why is my account empty?" She didn't even pause. "We needed it," she said. "You know things have been hard. We'll pay you back when we can." I turned to my brother, Evan. He just smirked. "Come on, Alyssa. You always bounce back. You're good with money." Madison, my sister, wouldn't even meet my eyes. It was like they had all agreed on this, like it was some family plan to survive, with my money. I felt something inside me break. These were the people I trusted most, the people I thought I was helping. I had worked 2 jobs for years after college, saving every bit I could to build something for myself. And in a matter of months, my own family had drained it all like it meant nothing. I didn't yell or cry in front of them. I just stood there, frozen, trying to understand how love could turn into this kind of betrayal. I went back to my room, sat on the bed, and stared at the wall. My chest hurt, but my mind was strangely calm. I kept replaying my mom's words in my head. "We're family. What's yours is ours." That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept staring at the ceiling, thinking about every favor I had done, every bill I'd paid, every time I'd said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." And for the first time in my life, I realized my biggest mistake wasn't trusting strangers. It was trusting the people I called family. I spent the whole morning trying to make sense of what had happened. The numbers didn't lie, but my heart refused to believe it. I kept hoping there was some mistake, that maybe the bank had mixed up my account with someone else's. But when the bank representative confirmed that the transfers were made by people connected to my joint account, everything inside me went quiet. I asked her to read out the names. When she said my mother's name first, my stomach twisted. Then came Evan, then Madison. It felt like someone had punched all the air out of me. I hung up and just sat there, staring at the phone. These were the people I'd grown up protecting, the ones I worked for, worried for, cared for. How could they do this? That evening, I drove to my mom's house. The house looked the same, neat lawn, warm lights, the smell of dinner floating through the air. But when I stepped inside, it felt different. Cold. I stood in the living room watching my mom stir a pot on the stove like nothing had happened. My brother was on the couch scrolling through his phone, and Madison was painting her nails. I wanted to scream, but instead I said quietly, "We need to talk." They all looked up, and for a moment, I thought maybe they'd apologize or explain. Instead, my mom sighed like she was tired of me already. "If this is about the money," she said, "we needed it. You're always fine, Alyssa. You'll figure it out." I stared at her, trying to understand how she could say it so casually. "You emptied my savings," I said slowly. "Everything I worked for. How could you do that without even asking me?" Evan leaned back on the couch and said, "It's not like we stole from a stranger. We're family. You're supposed to help." Madison just rolled her eyes and muttered, "You're being dramatic." My chest tightened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They didn't even see it as wrong. To them, it was normal. My mom looked right at me and said, "What's yours is ours, Alyssa. We're family. Don't make it a big deal." That one line hit harder than anything else. I realized she truly believed it, that everything I owned, everything I earned, belonged to them too. I stood there, frozen, while they went back to their normal evening routine like nothing had happened. The sound of the TV filled the silence between us. I wanted to shout, to make them understand how much they had hurt me, but I knew it wouldn't matter. They didn't see it as betrayal. When I walked out of the house that night, I felt empty. The air was cold, but I barely noticed. I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. That single sentence from my mom echoed in my head again and again. "What's yours is ours." In that moment, I knew something inside me had broken for good. I went back to their house a few days later, still hoping they would come to their senses. I thought maybe they just didn't realize how serious it was. I sat them all down at the kitchen table and tried to explain. I've worked for every dollar I have, I said. I've paid your bills, helped you with loans, and never asked for anything back. But this isn't okay. Evan just laughed like it was some kind of joke. Relax, Alyssa. You'll make it back. You always do. His tone was careless, almost proud. My mom didn't even look up from her cup of tea. Madison scrolled on her phone, pretending not to listen. That was when I understood something painful. None of them cared about how much I'd lost. To them, I wasn't a sister or daughter anymore. I was a source, a safety net. I left that day feeling small. I drove home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight they hurt. I wanted to believe that maybe it was a one-time mistake. But then the signs started showing up, one after another. First, I got a letter in the mail saying my car loan had been refinanced. I thought it was a mistake, but when I looked closer, it listed my mother's name as the new primary holder. Somehow, she had switched the ownership without me knowing. I called the loan office, but they told me the change was made with joint authorization. My stomach dropped. She had used my details again. A week later, I noticed my credit card bill had strange charges. Plane tickets, beauty supplies, and online shopping orders I never made. I called the company and learned the charges came from Madison's address. She had added herself as an authorized user months ago. I didn't even know until it was too late. Then came the worst part. I got a letter from the IRS saying my social security number was connected to multiple new accounts. When I checked further, all of them traced back to my family. My mom had used my SSN to apply for a new credit card, and Evan had used it for a personal loan. They were using my identity like it was free property, like it didn't belong to a real person. Each discovery felt like a knife twist. Every time I thought I'd found the limit to what they could do, they crossed another line. I tried to confront them again, but they brushed me off. My mom said, "It's not that serious. We'll fix it later." Evan told me to stop being so uptight. Madison rolled her eyes and said, "It's family business." That night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by papers, bank statements, loan letters, credit reports. The evidence of their betrayal was right in front of me. I realized I had spent years believing I was helping them, when in reality, they had been building their lives on my back. And for the first time, I felt anger replace the hurt. I hit a low I hadn't known I had in me. Sitting on the floor, the room felt too big and empty. I kept thinking about every choice I'd made to help them, and how those choices had turned against me. When I called Nina, she listened and didn't try to fix it for me. She said something that stuck. "Stop fixing people who keep hurting you." That line woke something up. I wiped my face, stood up, and started to plan. First, I decided emotions had to be out of the way. This wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about taking back control and making sure it never happened again. I wrote down what I knew, everything I could remember. Dates, conversations, bills, and any strange charges. I pulled together every paper I owned and put them in one folder. Seeing it all laid out made the problem feel smaller, like a puzzle I could solve. Next, I built a safe base. I opened a new bank account with a different bank and moved a little bit of money into it. Enough to pay the essentials, but not enough to draw attention. I changed passwords, email recovery options, and phone settings. I signed up for credit monitoring so I would know if anything else popped up. It felt good to lock things down, even in small ways. I also learned how to act methodically. I researched my rights and what steps people take when family members overstep. I read about financial abuse, identity protection, and legal steps victims take. I made a list of who to call when problems came up: the bank's fraud department, a credit bureau, a consumer protection office. Knowledge gave me power. I stopped feeling like a victim and started feeling like someone with a plan. I reached out to a lawyer who handled financial disputes. I didn't want a courtroom drama, but I wanted someone who knew how to file the right forms and send the right letters. The lawyer helped me prepare a clear, calm timeline of events and advised on what to freeze and what to report. I set up a meeting with a bank officer to discuss removing any old authorizations and closing accounts tied to others. I asked for everything in writing. I began documenting everything I did. Every phone call, every letter, every step was logged with dates and time. I recorded important conversations where legal to do so, and I saved emails and text messages. I made sure my actions were clean and defensible. No exaggerated stories, just facts. At the same time, I started protecting my life from more damage. I moved some personal items out of shared spaces, updated my lease and insurance info, and told a few trusted friends about what was happening so they could be references if needed. I kept my tone measured when I had to speak with family. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. The plan wasn't flashy. It was slow, steady, and precise. I wasn't trying to humiliate anyone. I wanted things returned to their proper place, and to make sure nobody could treat me like a bank again. For the first time in months, I felt a quiet clarity. I wasn't helpless. I was preparing to take everything back, piece by piece, and to make sure my life was mine again. Something inside me hardened. I knew I couldn't let this go on any longer. I began with silence. No big confrontations, no warnings. I wanted them to think I had given up, that I was still broken and trying to recover. It was easier that way. While they went on with their lives, I started gathering every piece of paper connected to my name. Old loan documents, credit statements, joint accounts, everything that carried my signature or my social security number. I sat at my kitchen table each night after work, sorting through piles of papers until I could see how deep their hands were in my life. There were loans in my name that I didn't even remember agreeing to. One was for Evan's car. Another was a small business loan my mother had taken years ago, but never paid off. Every time they needed something, they had used me as a shortcut. I made copies of everything and kept them in labeled folders. The more I organized, the clearer my plan became. The first thing I did was call every bank and credit company I had ever dealt with. I explained the situation carefully and requested to speak to their fraud departments. I provided them with proof of unauthorized transactions and copies of accounts I had never signed for. It took hours, sometimes days, on hold, but I didn't stop until every one of those accounts was frozen. No one could withdraw, transfer, or open anything else using my name. Next, I reported identity theft to the credit bureaus. I placed fraud alerts on my credit profile so that any new activity would require my direct confirmation. It felt strange, filing reports against people I shared a last name with, but I knew I had to protect myself. I learned how to block old authorizations and revoke power of attorney where it had been carelessly given. Slowly, my financial identity started to separate from. After that, I sent formal letters, professional, calm, and backed by proof. I mailed them to every company or service where my family had attached my name. I included copies of my ID and the fraud reports. Those letters became my shield. They said in clear terms that I was no longer responsible for any of those debts or actions. While doing all this, I documented every step. I kept a notebook where I wrote down dates, the names of people I spoke to, and what was said. I saved every email and every letter I received. I even took screenshots of online transactions, just in case someone tried to deny what had happened. Some nights I felt exhausted, but it was a clean kind of tired. I wasn't stuck in anger anymore. I was moving forward. I could see small changes happening. Emails from banks confirming account freezes, notifications from credit bureaus showing progress, and statements finally listing zero balances under my name. By the time a month had passed, I had separated myself from nearly everything tied to them. It was like cutting through a tangled web strand by strand. My finances were no longer their playground. My name finally meant something that belonged only to me. And while they had it didn't take long for things to start falling apart. At first, I didn't even notice it happening. I was too focused on rebuilding my own life, working, saving, and trying to feel normal again. But soon the calls started coming in. Evan was the first. His voice was full of panic. "They took my car," he shouted. "They just showed up and towed it away." I didn't say much. I already knew why. The loan had always been under my credit line, and when I froze everything, the payments stopped. Without my name keeping it active, the car technically belonged to the bank. He yelled, saying I had ruined his life, but all I said was, "You should have thought of that before you used my name." Then I hung up. A few days later, Madison called. Her voice trembled at first, but it quickly turned angry. "My lease didn't go through," she said. "They said something about the co-signer being removed." She meant me. Without my credit backing her up, the landlord must have pulled her approval. I could almost hear the disbelief in her tone, like she couldn't understand how her actions had consequences. I didn't argue or explain. I just told her, "Maybe it's time you learned how to stand on your own." Then it was my mother. She came to my apartment one evening, banging on my door. When I opened it, she was furious. "They cut off my power," she shouted. "Do you know what you've done? You're punishing your own family." I stayed calm, even though my heart was racing. I told her the truth. I had removed my name from every utility and account I was tied to. I wasn't paying for things I didn't use anymore. She glared at me like I was a stranger. "You've become cold," she said. "You're not the daughter I raised." That one stung a little, but I didn't let it show. "Maybe the daughter you raised finally learned," I said quietly. Then I closed the door. In the weeks that followed, their calls became constant. They tried guilt, anger, and even begging. Evan said he couldn't find another car without a cosigner. Madison complained she had to move in with a friend. My mom claimed she was sick and needed help with bills. Each time, I listened but didn't give in. I had spent years holding them up, and the moment I stepped back, their world started crumbling. It wasn't satisfying in the way I thought revenge might be. It didn't feel like payback. It felt like balance. For once, everyone was living within their own choices. They called me heartless, but I knew I wasn't. I had given them more chances than anyone deserved. I didn't block their numbers, but I stopped answering every time they called. I needed peace. I told them once, and only once, if you wanted independence, you've got it now. After that, I let silence do the rest. Their comfortable lives had been built on my back, and now that I had stepped away, everything they built had collapsed. Quietly, fairly, and finally, the damage they caused had come full circle. Yet the quiet work I was doing was already changing everything. It didn't take long before they all came knocking, one by one. My mom was the first. She stood outside my door one rainy evening, her face red and wet from both tears and the weather. When I opened the door, she didn't say hello. She went straight into it. "Alyssa, how could you do this to us?" she cried. "We're your family. We needed help." Her voice cracked, and for a moment I almost felt the old pull, the instinct to comfort her, to fix things. But then I remembered the empty bank account, the fake signatures, the sleepless nights. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at her and said, "I did what I had to do, Mom. You used me." She shook her head like she couldn't believe I was saying that. "We were just trying to survive," she said softly. "You've turned your back on your own blood." I didn't respond. I quietly went to my desk, picked up the folder I had prepared, and handed her a copy of the fraud report. "This is what you built," I said. "Now live in it." She stared at the papers for a few seconds, then dropped them on the floor and left without another word. The sound of the door closing behind her felt like the end of something I had been holding on to for too long. The next day, Madison called. She didn't even try to hide her anger. "You're evil," she said. "You ruined my life because you can't let go of some stupid money." I almost laughed at how twisted that sounded. "You think it's about money?" I said quietly. "It's about respect, Madison. Something you never gave me." She hung up on me after that. Later that night, Evan sent a long message accusing me of destroying our family. He said he couldn't get a job because his credit was ruined, that I had embarrassed them all. I read the message twice before replying. "I didn't destroy anything," I typed back. "I just stopped letting you use me." Then I blocked his number. For days after that, there was silence. No calls, no knocks, no fake apologies. Just quiet. And for the first time in a long time, my apartment actually felt peaceful. I made dinner, watched a show, and didn't have to check my phone every 5 minutes in fear of another bill or threat. It was strange, but in a good way. That night, I lay in bed and realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad either. I just felt done. I had spent years trying to be the one who kept everyone together, but all it did was break me apart. Now, I was finally free from that burden. Before I turned off the light, I thought about my mom's words. We're family. Maybe once, that would have meant something to me. But now, it was just a reminder that love without respect isn't love at all. I fell asleep easily. Time moved on quietly after everything fell apart. I focused on myself for the first time in years. I found a better job at a local firm and started saving again, little by little. Every paycheck felt like a small victory. I opened a new bank account that only I could access, changed all my passwords, and promised myself I would never mix family and money again. The apartment that once felt empty started to feel like home. I bought a few new things, a bookshelf, some plants, a secondhand couch. I spent evenings cooking simple meals, listening to music, and actually enjoying the silence. There were no sudden phone calls demanding help, no guilt-tripping messages, no threats wrapped in fake concern. It was just me, my peace, and the slow process of rebuilding. At first, I thought I would miss them more. But as months passed, the pain faded into a quiet understanding. I wasn't angry anymore. I just accepted that some people will take until you have nothing left to give. I started therapy too, something I'd never done before. My therapist helped me see that what happened wasn't my fault, that love doesn't mean allowing people to walk all over you. One afternoon, I stopped by a grocery store after work. I was walking through the produce aisle when I heard someone say my name. I turned around and there was Evan. He looked completely different. His face was tired and his clothes were wrinkled. He wasn't the confident, joking brother I used to know. He looked beaten down by life. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "You really left us with nothing, Alyssa." His voice wasn't angry this time. It was just empty. I looked at him for a long second before answering. "No, Evan," I said. "You left yourselves with nothing." He blinked, like he didn't know what to say to that. I could see a bit of shame in his eyes, but he quickly looked away. I didn't feel the urge to comfort him anymore. The old me would have offered help, maybe money, maybe advice. But that part of me was gone. I had learned the hard way that some people don't change until they lose everything they took for granted. He nodded slightly and walked off without another word. I stood there for a while, staring at the apples in my cart, feeling something strange but calm inside me. It wasn't bitterness or pride, it was freedom. I had finally stopped carrying their weight. When I got home that evening, I made myself dinner and sat by the window, watching the sunset. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. My life was mine again. And as quiet as it was, that silence felt like the purest form of peace I'd ever known. That night, the kind of deep, peaceful sleep I hadn't felt in months. Looking back now, I see everything more clearly. What happened to me wasn't just about money. It was about trust, love, and learning where to draw the line. For a long time, I thought family meant forgiveness no matter what. I thought being loyal meant fixing everyone's mistakes and carrying their burdens. But now I know that real family doesn't take advantage of your kindness or use your love as a weapon. I've learned that being related by blood doesn't automatically make someone your family. True family is built on respect, not guilt. It's built on honesty, not manipulation. The people who genuinely love you will never make you feel small for setting boundaries. They won't steal from you, lie to you, or expect you to clean up the mess they made. There were moments when I questioned myself, late at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd gone too far by cutting them off. Sometimes I missed my mom's voice, even though her words had hurt me. Sometimes I thought about Madison and Evan and wished things had turned out differently. But every time I remembered the betrayal, the lies, and the years I spent working while they drained everything I had, I reminded myself why I walked away. The peace I have now didn't come easy. It came from tears, sleepless nights, and painful realizations. But it's worth every bit of it. I can breathe without waiting for the next phone call asking for money. I can rest knowing no one is using my name or my credit to live their lives. I can smile without pretending everything is fine. That's what freedom feels like, quiet and steady. When people ask me if I regret what I did, I always tell them no. I didn't ruin my family. I simply stopped letting them ruin me. For years, I allowed them to treat my success like a shared resource. I thought love meant sacrifice, but now I understand love should never feel like slavery. Walking away wasn't cruel. It was survival. I still believe in forgiveness, but not the kind that lets people hurt you over and over again. Forgiveness, to me, means letting go of the anger and choosing peace for yourself. It doesn't mean going back to the people who broke you. It means closing that chapter and never reopening it. I've met new people who treat me with respect and kindness. Friends who feel more like family than the ones I was born with. They celebrate my growth, not my downfall. They understand boundaries and appreciate honesty. The biggest lesson I've learned is this. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is choose yourself. But once you do, everything starts to change. I didn't lose a family. I just made room. A year later, life looks completely different. I wake up in a small but beautiful home that I bought myself. Every part of it, from the down payment to the furniture, came from my own hard work. When I walk through the front door, I feel a kind of peace I never knew before. There's no tension, no guilt, no one asking me for help while secretly taking advantage of me. Just silence, calm, and a sense of pride that I built this new life on my own terms. In my office, above my desk, hangs a framed copy of my old bank statement. It shows a zero balance, the day everything fell apart. Most people would probably throw something like that away, but I keep it as a reminder. Every time I look at it, I don't feel shame anymore. I feel strength. That empty account taught me more about people, love, and boundaries than any book or advice ever could. It's proof that I started from nothing and rebuilt everything. Sometimes I still think about my family. I wonder how they're doing, if they ever understood what they did to me. There are nights when I miss the idea of having a family to call or visit on holiday. But then I remember the pain, the betrayal, and the loneliness I felt even when they were around. Missing the idea of family isn't the same as missing them. It's just missing what I hoped family could be. Now, my peace comes first. I don't owe anyone my energy, my forgiveness, or my money. I learned how to protect my heart the same way I protect my bank account, carefully and firmly. When people show me who they are, I believe them the first time. That's something I wish I'd learned sooner. I've become more cautious, but not cold. I still help people when I can, but I do it with clear boundaries. I've learned to say no without guilt, to walk away when something feels wrong, and to trust my instinct. The world feels safer now because I know I can rely on myself. There's something powerful about standing in your own home and realizing every part of it exists because of your own choices. No one handed it to me. No one took it from me. It's mine. That feeling of independence is worth more than anything I lost. Sometimes, when the evening light hits the framed statement just right, I catch myself smiling. That piece of paper no longer represents loss. It represents victory. I went from being taken advantage of to taking control of my life. I went from feeling used to feeling free. I still believe family can be beautiful when it's built on love and respect. But peace is priceless. And now, both my account and my heart finally belong to me, and me alone. For a better one, built on trust, love, and peace. And that, to me, is everything.